couldn't integrate with my enemy, and I know who my enemy is. But at the same time, I'm against segregation.
Even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression.
It ought to be possible, therefore, for American students of any color to attend any public institution they select without having to be backed up by troops.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream.
But this is not the case. The Negro baby born in America today, regardless of the section of the state in which he is born, has about 1/2 as much chance of completing a high school as a white baby, born in the same place,
the only way
on the same day.
We can bring to the attention of the world the unjust situation that exists in this so-called free school system of America is to boycott the school, then we should boycott the school. We should, as a protest, I wouldn't agree with anybody to boycott any school.
Around the time when the Declaration of Independence had been written, in the United States, slavery began to phase out in the northern parts of the country. However, in the South, that was not the case. The Southern slave owners kept their slaves and continued to keep in the mindset that black people were property, not people. This mindset continued through the early 1930s, where the harshness of segregation began to take place amongst children's schools. The segregation of primary and secondary schools severely damaged many aspects of life for young white children and colored children by denying colored children a substantial education, creating a hateful breed of white children, and sheltering these children from the real world. Colored children of the American South during the 1930s were being denied the proper education that they needed due to the color of their skin. The colored children were placed in all black schools, and these particular schools were not allowing their students to receive a proper education because they did not have the resources to do so. These all-black schools were extremely underfunded and did not have nearly enough resources and tools for learning as well as the white schools did. There were enormous discrepancies between the black and white schools concerning funding. Due to this, the black schools had inferior books, buildings, classrooms, bathrooms, meals, water, and the list goes on and on. The classrooms were overcrowded and there were not enough desks and chairs for the children to sit in, and the teachers that were educating them did not receive as much training as a white teacher would. These positions did not pay very well, and with this being added to the rural conditions, it was very difficult to find a qualified teacher for one of these schools. Even if they found a decent teacher who wanted the children to learn, their employers were white and would fire them if they stood up for the right thing to do. Along with this, there were limits on what could be taught to these children. The white administrators of the all-black schools did not want black children to learn about the ideas such as freedom or independence. With this, they couldn't read any books that had the United States Constitution in them, or with these lack of resources and the conditions that they were put in, the children who were victims of segregation could not educationally function. Due to the segregation between the white and black children's schools, this further allows the white children to believe that they are superior than an entire race of people. The children from the South had already learned from their parents that the blacks were bad people and were not to be associated with. With the enforcement of segregation and the children's not being able to interact with each other, the white children go on believing that they are better than all people with colored skin, and they grow up to be even more hateful and spiteful adults. If the Jim Crow laws were not existent, then progressive steps could have been taken for the black and white children to integrate and to get to know one another as people as opposed to each other's pigmentation. Despite all the bad it did to children and society altogether, many people of all races thought that segregation was a good thing because they believed that it sheltered young children from the harshness of racism. People thought it would be smart to keep all children protected from reality as long as humanly possible, in order to protect their well-being. It would keep the white children from having to socialize with the inferior black children, and it would keep the black children from the bullying and racist remarks of the white children. In spite of the trueness of the fact that white and black people don't need to be in the same room to learn, segregation is still an epidemic that needed to be put to a stop. It shielded children from what was actually going on in the world. It is true that children should not be subject to be seeing anything cruel or gruesome, but people of a different skin color does not fall under either of those categories. When one keeps a certain race away from the other, they become completely blindsided when they realize that in life they must interact with the foreign, different colored people. Black children have been separated from white children, and they get a harsh slap of racism when they are done with school from the white people all around them in reality. White people, when they have finished school, must be subjected to associating with colored people whom they have not gotten to know and assume they are the enemy. Segregation in schools took away the children's right to be progressive. And instead of a brighter generation with a higher tolerance for people who are different than they are, we are continuing to breed the same regressive, hateful youth. Today, segregation has been beaten. No longer are children sheltered due to the color of their skin, and no longer are people subjected to rural conditions and hateful thoughts due to ignorance. Today, we can all thank the hard work of so many people, the teachers of the colored schools for educating their students in the worst of conditions, students for persevering through the times where an environment that a child could learn in was nowhere near becoming an environment that was peaceful and filled with acceptance. Because of the acts that were fought against, the children of today will not know the pains, the struggles, and the wrongful injustice of segregation.